welcome to Cover Story. This week we talk to Haryana MP Dipinder Singh Hooda, who is the earnest and young face of Team Rahul and also a key player of Congress tomorrow. The 35-year-old Dipinder Singh Hooda is a key player in Team Rahul. He has been entrusted with the crucial task of managing the social media for the next Lok Sabha polls. But it's not just the digital world for the tech-savvy Hooda. He is equally at ease at the grassroots and was at Rahul's side during the latter's campaign in Bhatta Parsol. The two-term MP comes from an impeccable political lineage and is a third-generation MP. His grandfather, Ranbir Singh Hooda, was a freedom fighter, an MP and a minister in the Punjab government. His father, Bhupinder Singh Hooda, is the Chief Minister of Haryana. But of late, Dipinder seems to be stepping out of his father's shadow and coming into his own, as was evident from his parliament speech on FDI in retail. This won accolades across party lines. Of course, we are still waiting for that 24-inch potato that the earnest young MP promised to counter Sushma Swaraj's charge that McDonald's found Indian potatoes too small. Let's now talk to Dipinder about potatoes and politics. Hello and welcome to Cover Story. Dipinder, first of all, belated congratulations for this new task that has been entrusted to you, handling the social media. Though I'm not sure, is it congratulations or is it a very tough task that you've been given?
No, it's just the role that the party is assigned to me. And I don't think one can look at any role that the party assigns by the degree of toughness or easiness. One has to do their best, and that's what I'm looking to do.
But it is, considering that the war of the next generation is going to be fought on the social media, what do you feel? I mean, with Modi, they've kind of captured the whole media, haven't they?
No, I think it's critical. I agree with you, it's critical. For any political party, it's at most of most importance to get the message across, to communicate with all sections of the population, whether young, old, so I think using all the mediums to convey the message remains the same, whether it's conveyed through the print media, the electronic media, or social media, but it's very important. I mean, the usage of social media is increasing, and I don't like the word social media, by the way. It's digital media, because everything is converging from, for your phones to TV, because, now TV is connected to online polls and Twitter polls and Twitter comments, live Twitter feeds.
It's a world of instant reaction, you would say.
Yeah, so that's what we're moving at. The pace of information dissemination has increased tremendously over the last 5 years. And I think for any political party, including us, I think it's important that we we are able to get our points across, to convey our message, and then let the audience decide. I think it's a very important clog in the whole communication wheel.
But is the Congress losing the war? Because, we've seen Modi and his people, they kind of all over the social media. Even you tweet anything about for or against Modi, you'll get an instant 100 reactions. That is not the same with the Congress, with Rahul Gandhi.
See, I think, one reason that why you're seeing all that is a lot of, I feel, paid support that some of our opposition parties have been able to garner. And, they are committing a lot of resources to achieve this end. But I think that's the beauty of social media. You can do that. I mean, that's you can get a head start if you pump in a lot of money and resources. And but ultimately the truth prevails. And at end of the day, because it's everybody is connected. So you can only fool people for so long, as you saw when one of our opposition leaders was making a speech at the FICCI Women Conference. They tried to trend something like Modi storms FICCI. So as a reaction, the youngsters of this nation, they started they started trending a word called FAKU, and now FAKU has become such a so as a reaction, the youngsters of this nation, they started they started trending a word called FAKU, and now FAKU has become such a universally sort of accepted word in the standard dictionary. If you go search FACO on Google, you'll be amazed at the number of stories and usage of this word that you'll find.
FACO was in reaction to Pappu. I mean, there was also a name for the Congress leader.
So that's the point being that the paid army that some of our opposition parties have deployed, I think they can only help to a point, because ultimately it's my belief that social media is the most democratic form of communication as well. I mean, it's more democratic than electronic media, print media, as Priya, that you were earlier part of. I mean, all those, like be it electronic or print, there is certain power vested with the editorial boards and the editors and the journalists. But in case of social media, eventually it's the people. The power has shifted to the people, and if the power is shifted to the people, it's also true in my belief that you can try to spread a certain kind of lie or exaggerate certain facts. End of the day, the truth will prevail.
You're not naming the names, so let me name it. Certainly the new fight is now between Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi. In that sense, does Modi have more of an advantage? He is a visible leader, and here we have an invisible leader. We are told Rahul is meeting people, Rahul is working, but it's all very much behind closed doors. So do you have a very difficult product to sell?
I do not agree with the question that you put. I don't think it's a war between any individuals versus another. It's going to be a question of different ideologies, choosing between different ideologies this time, different visions of the nation.
Politics has become personality driven. There was Advani versus Manmohan Singh in the last election.
The personalities are certainly important. There is no doubt about that. The personalities are certainly important, and I think I think as far as Congress party is concerned, I think we have very strong leadership. We have the correct intent. We have the correct ideology we have the correct vision of this country, and I think all those things are going to be very important, and I think that's the reason why it's very important for us to let the youngsters know what our vision is, and that's what we will be trying to do in the coming months.
But Ravinder, tell me something. You had this 2-day workshop recently where, Rahul Gandhi and even yourself, a lot of leaders addressed the spokespersons from all over the state. And one of the message was, don't make controversial statements, do not contradict each other, don't cross the party line. And yet 2 days later, we have two controversies. We have that ₹5 per meal by Raj Babbar. We have Shakil Ahmed who carried on with his controversial tweets. So what is happening? Are people not listening to Rahul Gandhi?
No, it's, I think that workshop, the message that Rahulji gave in that workshop is very important. I mean, I think he came out and said something very important, which is that we should always be truthful. We should always state what is true. We should never exaggerate anything, as like some of the other opposition leaders are constantly in the habit of doing. So we shouldn't be doing that. This was a very successful communication workshop. All our spokespeople from across the country.
Was it very successful? Because has the message gone down? Even yesterday we had Chidambaram saying one thing on Batla House, Digvijay saying another. So these various views are still persisting.
No, absolutely. This doesn't mean, there's by no means did Rahulji imply that this is the voice and there cannot be any digression from this at all. I mean, we are Congress is a big party. We have are also we have strong belief in being democratic ourselves, and within a broad umbrella party view, you are going to see there are bound to be some views with different variations. That's what Congress is all about.
But tell me something more. What is going to happen now, in the Congress? Are we going to see more of Rahul? Because you are one person who's been associated a lot with Rahul because you've been working in the Youth Congress. You were part of the executive of the Youth Congress. You've seen his work style from earlier to now when he's become a vice president. What is Rahul like? What is his work style like?
No,
is it very invisible?
No, I think he's very focused. He's very committed. He's very committed to nation building. He's very committed to the party. He's very committed. Is he a
reluctant leader? That's basically what everybody wants to know.
Absolutely not. Any responsibility that he's taken on. I do not know of any other person who's taken that responsibility more seriously than him. You know, when he was entrusted with the responsibility of being the General Secretary for the party responsible for Youth Congress and NSUI, he undertook the Herculean task of injecting internal democracy inside Youth Congress and NSUI, as you were following that at that point of time. And that was something unheard of at that point, because, you know, in India, you know, while there is internal democracy, as I mean, including within the Congress and BJP, it's to a point, and we needed to go beyond that. We needed to push the envelope, and he did that.
Okay, moving away from Rahul, let's talk about you and your plans. Are you here at the national level, or will we see a model of you? Any plans of going back to the state? Will they be like the Akhilesh Mulayam model, the Farooq Umar?
So you know, as far as I am concerned, I'm a member of parliament from Haryana. So in that capacity, I'm already involved in my state. Yeah. So and I cannot you know, wish away of that responsibility, and I take it very, very seriously. That's something that is very dear to me.
See, Virinder, we all remember your speech on FDI and retail. That was made a lot of impact in the house. But I have to ask you, ये 24 inch का आलू मिला है कि नहीं? Where is the आलू?
You know, I have great regard for Sushma ji, and she tried to pick on that point because she couldn't pick on any other point in that speech. And she's from Haryana too, and obviously she understood my the point, the whip that I you know was using in that context. And to her I will say कि हरियाणा, आप भी हरियाणा से हो, आपको तो पता होना चाहिए कि हरियाणवी जब चाहे तो 24 इंच की क्या, हम तो 48 इंच का भी आलू जो है उगा सकते हैं जब हम आ जाएं अपनी पे. So I mean, you know, it just goes, that's parliamentary, that's the parliament debate, that's the beauty of parliament debate at its best, I guess. You know, when, you know, you are able to enjoy some of the points and counterpoints that you know, you make at each other. But coming back to a more serious point, unfortunately we have not been able to see much of debate. It's this opposition which is really throttled the parliament, which is really, you know, ensured that this particular session, the 16th Lok Sabha, we'll see about 50% of our time lost to disruptions, which is
no, but also look at the last session. I think
the
the Congress also has to take some of the blame. They were asking for resignation of 2 ministers. So why didn't you make them resign? You did that the minute House was adjourned. You made these 2 resign. Pehle kar dete, you would have saved some and got your food security bill passed.
No, but you know, if you look at all the sessions, I think the level of intolerance has gone up as far as opposition is concerned, and level of intolerance for the functioning of our parliament. Or some of the parties have started using the floor of the houses, floor of parliament, as public, you know, public debating or public rallying, public, you know, point making stages. You know, they've just become glorified political stages, and that's not what parliament is all about. I mean, if that was the case, then where's the need of having public rallies outside parliament? Let's have public rallies in parliament. What constitutional right do they have of, you know, not letting our voice, not letting my voice, for example? I'm a member of parliament. I've been elected by the people of Rohtak.
When you were in the opposition, whether it was Coffin Gate, you also stole the house in that time.
If you look at the record,
something opposition parties do, unfortunately.
No. If you look at the record,
the last 9 years, you've been lucky that you've been in power more than them for the last so many years.
Well, it's not that it's our luck that we've been in power more time than them. It's what the people of India have voted for. Throughout, whenever we've been in opposition, it has been, you know, 5%, 10% of the total time of the House lost during disruptions. And now it's 50, 60, 70%. And there are sessions which are wiped out completely, 100%.
Look at the food security bill. Where was the need to rush through an ordinance? That also says you're thumbing an oath at parliamentary democracy. Na? Parliament session is going to begin in 2 weeks. What's the hurry?
It is. I mean, why you know, once the decision has been made, and the opposition knows about it, they knew about it in the last session also, that we are going to bring it in. So once the decision has been made, and the opposition, and we know the intent of the opposition, that they're going to block it. They had us lose an entire session of Parliament. Just in my opinion, one of the biggest factors for them to, whatever they are saying, is the resignation of this, that, but you know, the biggest factor in my opinion for us losing that session is for the want of BJP. They never wanted us to enact the food, to bring in the food security bill. They wanted to delay it just because of some political calculations that they have made, that once the Congress brings in food security bill, it will be a moment of another Manrega and you know, the nuclear deal for them, and you know, they will the chances of UPA coming back are going to increase. Based on that one political calculation, they stole an entire session from from the people of this country, the last session. Now, I mean, you know, are we going to expect them to change their behavior in this session and just hope for our luck? No, we are here to bat for the people of this country. We are not here to bat for the BJP.
Dipinder, there's a lot of worry about, you know, some of the Congress's schemes that you've announced, these welfare schemes, it is the food security bill, Narega. I mean, you have a prime minister who's a decent economist, but in the end you turned him into a dole giver of sorts.
I think these terms as dole giver, dole giving or dole givers are meaningless. If you look at the core value, the core value of the Congress, which is also imbibed in our constitution, the core value of the constitution of our country, it's something to do about creating a nation which treats everybody equally, which doesn't leave people behind, which looks at providing adequate support to those who need the support. I think you know, what we saw during the BJP NDA time was when they came out with that India Shining slogan, where India was shining in certain corners, but large parts of India, large sections of our society were getting left behind. In terms of disparity, you know, if you look at, if you measure in disparity in our society, it's large. It was larger with the growth model that NDA pursued, but it's still very large, and we need to address that. And I think what we've been doing, what UP has been doing over these last 7-8 years, is we are trying to make sure that our country grows at a fast pace. We are growing at 2.4 times the speed at which NDA is going in terms of rupee value.
Well, the rupee is also falling. It's fallen at...
Yeah, I'll answer that too. So we are growing at a faster rate, but we are also reducing poverty at 3 times the rate that NDA was able to manage with its growth model. So I think we are trying to pursue that vision of our constitution, of our founding fathers, of creating an India in which no one is left behind. And I think the whole talk about overdoing it, if you look at government spend as a percentage of GDP, in case of India it's about 18%. If you look at the Scandinavian countries, it goes out to 40%, 45%. If you look at France, which is a non-Scandinavian socialistic model, it's still 39%. Canada, it's about more than 40%.
Which model is India heading towards, a welfare economy model or a more liberalized India of Rajiv Gandhi?
So that's that's the point that I want to make. That on one hand, we are, you know, Congress is the party which opened the floodgates to liberalization and globalization as far as Indian economy is concerned in 1991. Congress is the party which firmly believes in a faster growth rate model. We, under UPA, our economy is growing at a much faster pace than during the time of NDA. But at the same time, we also want to make sure that the fruits of this growth are shared equally amongst our people. The support is given to those who need it, so that no one is left behind. And I think that's the only model that is going to succeed in our country. A model just like the model that's working in some of the NDA ruled states, that they are trying to grow, but at the same time disparity is growing at such an alarming rate, as was pointed out by Planning Commission in their appraisal of some of the BJP ruled states. That model is going to be unsustainable for our country. Now let's come back to the rupee question that you asked. Yes, I think the rupee has fallen. No economy can be unaffected by what's going on as far as the global conditions are concerned. The Fed decided to ease the stimulation, the monetary stimulation that there were expectations that as far as the global conditions are concerned, the Fed decided to ease the stimulation, the monetary stimulation that there were expectations that the interest rate by the Fed are going to be raised, the monetary injections are going to be eased out. Once that happened, all the currencies have taken a beating as far as with respect to dollar is concerned, and some of the currencies like Brazil, the real has fallen more than rupee in the same period. So that is doesn't necessarily point to any specific weakness as far as Indian fundamentals are concerned. Our fundamentals are still very strong.
I'm going to give you the BJP argument. Whose fault is it that there is inequitable growth? Congress has been ruling this country for 3/4 of our independence.
But if you look at how far we have come in these years, while there are problems still, my argument to BJP is, yes, I'm not saying that there are no problems in our country anymore, but while there are problems still, they should not belittle the efforts of millions and billions of people over these last 60 years to make sure that India has reached a point in its economic life. It's considered as one of the world's leading economies.
You're from a third generation family of politicians, but you were not planning to join politics, right? What made you change your mind?
See, like you rightly said,
your grandfather was a member of the Constituent
Assembly. Yeah,
Assembly.
my grandfather was a member of the Constituent Assembly. He was also a member of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. I did my engineering, then I worked for a couple of years, then I did my MBA, and I was working in US for a few years. And while I never really wanted to join politics as such, but at the same time, even when I was working as a professional in the United States, there's something at the back of my mind that whatever I was doing there, I wasn't deriving the kind of satisfaction that one should, one deserves to from their job. I was always on the terrible horns of dilemma whether I should come back and do something meaningful back home, because the difference you can make here versus whatever you're doing as a professional, you're primarily doing that just for yourself and your family. And one night I remember, this was in Dallas. One night I got back home late, and I decided to, I was really terrible, like I said, on the horns of this dilemma, and I decided to write down my goals for life: medium-term goal, short-term goal, and long-term goal.
It's a very corporate outlook, huh?
I went through the elaborate process of writing all the short-term goals, this, that, and I'm going to make to this level, me a medium-term goal. Writing my long-term goal, I basically, imagine myself being old, sitting in a room when I'm like 80-something or 90-something, and looking back at my life. And I said, what will make me happy? If I've really done well professionally and financially here in the US, while I'm away from my family and doing all that just for myself and my immediate family, and completely cutting myself off from my people in my country, or if I don't do all that, don't enjoy that kind of superficial success, but I'm able to go back home, be with my family, make whatever change that I can, whatever contribution that I can for my country, for my area, for my people, whatever I can, and will that make me more satisfied? Because that answers the question for life for me. And immediately when I looked at life like that, the next day I went back to the office, I put in my papers, put in my resignation. 2 weeks later, I was on a flight with 2 bags, the same 2 bags that I'd arrived 7 years back in the US, the same 2 bags I took back, and I landed in Delhi. So there you go. So that's when I sort of decided to be back home, be in the public life.
Who would you say are role models? You have your father before you as an example, you have your grandfather. Who would you say are your role models?
See, I think everybody is different, and
okay, answer another question. Everybody is different. How would you compare your work style with your father's work style?
My father is a deeply compassionate person. He's somebody who has very, very strong willpower. The levels of discipline that he pursues is just unbelievable. He is, unruffled and unfazed by all the ups and downs of daily politics. Completely unlike me. I tend to get excited. I tend to get anxious. I sometimes want things to happen at pace that don't happen. I mean, that some of the things that I want at some results, like instant results, and so maybe I'm learning. I'll get to that stage. But the way he handles everything, he will get up in the morning every day. He'll play for a couple of hours. He'll meet people at whatever time is designated, and no matter what's happening, and he's able to handle so much stress with the level of equanimity. I think that's the word that I was looking for. With the level of equanimity, which absolutely makes him one of the role models that I'm lucky to have in my home. I think I need to learn from that and shape some of my the way I do my structure my work accordingly. Yeah.
Does your wife have any complaints about you joining politics or spending so much time in the political life, or she's used to it? She's also from a political family.
She's from a political family. I was already one term and few months into politics when I met her.
So she knew what she was getting into.
She kind of knew, but she's obviously not happy. She's obviously not happy. She would want me to spare, frankly, much more bandwidth for her than I do, and I guess she's right, because in politics the days, months, years just go wither by, and you just get so busy that you completely forget the ones who are closest to you, who some of the most dear ones. And I think that's so. If there's one thing that I would say about the decision of coming into politics, one aspect which I have not enjoyed is the fact that if you're in public life, you hardly get any time for your personal life at all. So I think I need to do a better job at that. I'm being very frank.
Thank you for being so frank with us and sparing some of that very busy bandwidth to talk to NewsX. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Well, that was Dipinder Singh Hooda playing advocate for the Congress party. Well, that's all for this week. Thank you for watching Cover Story, and see you again next week.